This week in Enterprise Tech, we talked about the dangers and not of QR codes, a new threat to industry, and we had a guest who talked about cloud across the world and how it can be the difference in successful enterprise computing. TWiT on the set.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This week in Enterprise Technology, episode 489, recorded April 15, 2022. Cloudy with a chance of infrastructure.
This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Nareva. Traditional audio conferencing systems can entail lots of components. Installation could take days. You might not get mic coverage you need. That's complex expensive. But Nareva Audio is easy to install and manage, no technicians required. And you get true full room coverage that's easy economical. Learn more at nareva.com. And by Bitwarden. Get the password manager that offers a robust and cost-effective solution that can drastically increase your chances of staying safe online. Get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. And by Intel, orchestrated by the experts at CDW to deliver increased performance with the built-for-business 11th Gen Intel Core vPro processor. Learn more at cdw.com/Intel client.
Welcome to TWiT. I'm your host, not Louis Maresca, but Curt Franklin. Lou is on assignment this week. I'm going to be leading our merry band as we bring you the best in enterprise technology for the week. Fortunately, I'm not doing it by myself. I do have a partner in crime, our resident geek, formerly of Paradise, now from the City Beautiful, Brian Chee. Brian, what's happening down on your end of the neighborhood?
Yeah, other than the thunderstorm seems to have gone away. That's cool. I added some new lights so that it's not such a dungeon anymore in my home office. And I'm basically getting ready to kind of reorganize my garage so I might actually be able to park a car in there. What a concept. But life is good. And hey, tonight I'm going to a Fusion 360 class over at the Makerspace and see if I can learn 3D CAD a little better. I've been using Tinkercad all this time. I think it's time to step up to some better tools.
I understand. I think I've got the desks next to yours for that class. Should be a lot of fun. But before we can go have 3D CAD fun, we've got a great show lined up, including a visit from Tristan Morel, Senior Managing Director at Accenture. We're going to be talking cloudy things, and it should be a great, great show. For that, though, we've got the blip, so let's give you a bit of the news of the week. First up, according to the CISO, the NSA, the FBI, and just about every other law enforcement agency, a new set of highly sophisticated cyber attack tools designed to target and disrupt industrial environments is wild and loose out in the environment. Their target? The energy sector specifically. Now, here on TWiT, we've previously talked about threats to operational technology, that's the IoT for industry, using PLCs from Schneider Electric as the venue. This new advisory was prompted by the recent discovery of 3 malware tools custom-built to target these technologies, as well as systems from Omron and servers based on Open Platform Communications Unified Architecture, or OPC-UA, and take those to manipulate them in dangerous and potentially destructive ways. Now, just to make things better, the malware can also be adapted to attack other industrial control system technologies as well. It will surprise approximately no one to learn that experts from Mandiant say they see the work of state-sponsored actors in play in these new tools. While Mandiant hasn't been able to associate the malware with any previously tracked groups, it believes, based on a giant pile of circumstantial evidence, that those behind it are almost certainly Russia-based. Security vendor Dragos listed a total of 16 devices and software tools from Omron and Schneider that the malware is already designed to interact with and exploit. In addition, Dragos said its analysis of the malware suggests it's targeted mostly at equipment in liquefied natural gas and electric power environments. The notices put out by law enforcement provide some remediation instructions, but the broad implications of this are crystal clear. If you're in a critical infrastructure company, and trust me, if you're not sure, you probably are, then you should be raising your threat level and upping your cybersecurity game.
So I got a really cool press release. Apparently, a team of Ukrainian developers is on a mission to transform supply chains by providing better visibility into the location and condition of packages in transit from shippers to recipients. Their focus is on transforming logistics through data with the goal of helping logistics companies optimize their operations and boost transparency using the latest digital technologies. Moeco Act trackers are disposable mini trackers designed in a sticker form factor. 10 by 10 centimeters with a thickness of 16 millimeters. This slim and lightweight IoT device means there's no need to change the configuration of the cargo. Usually a logistics company must choose whether to track a shipment's condition at the container level or pallet level, but the latter means reducing the amount of cargo transported. Well, with a Moeco tracker, it's possible to track the condition of the pallet level without changing the cargo configuration. So anyway, the Moeco sticker also emphasizes simplicity. Activation requires 3 simple steps. Peel off the protective film on the back of the sticker and stick it on the cargo. Then press the button on the sticker to activate it, and then create a shipment on the Moeco platform, adding activated trackers to it. Each tracker is valid for up to 6 months. So you see, that set of pallets is actually ready to go from Poland to Ukraine, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So when we go to the next one, you're going to start seeing some different things, including a map tracking the way it's going. Now, that's actually the Moeco tracker. So this is exactly the kind of thing I was trying to develop for food supply chain security grant programs being requested by various federal agencies about 15 years ago when I was looking into this. The cost per unit was too high to be practical. However, now these new sticker form trackers make it economical to keep better tabs on sensitive or valuable shipments in near real time. So if you ask me, this is a heck of a lot better than having to repack my sensitive cargo in Pampers boxes like I had to do for shipments into certain countries.
In an advisory dated April 14th, Symantec warned of an attack in which individuals were supposedly offered jobs in the chemical industry, then sent a job offer that contained Trojan code when the victim replied. The attack is part of a long-running campaign dubbed Operation Dream Job that sends targets in specific industries malicious web files disguised as job offers. In the past, this campaign, operated by North Korea's Lazarus group, targeted employees in defense, government, and engineering firms in a variety of countries, including South Korea and the United States. This time, the targets have been South Korean chemical companies and their IT service providers. The Symantec advisory noted that the campaign started at least as early as August 2020, though with a different target. In all cases, Operation Dream Job has set its sights on employees in critical infrastructure. If that describes you, and remember my earlier comment, if you're not sure, it does, then you should include warnings about this type of attack in all of your cybersecurity awareness training projects. Well, that does it for the blips. We have a bite coming up, but before we have that bite, we've got a message from a sponsor. Here to provide that, our noble leader, Lou Maresca.
Well, thanks, guys. I'll get you back to your enterprise and IT news in just a moment. But before we do have to thank a really great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's Nareva. Hybrid work is here to stay. That means people are going back to work, and meetings will have remote and on-site workers. Complicated and costly. That's been the state of audio conferencing for larger spaces for a long time. Choosing a traditional system might require difficult design software and selecting from a dizzying array of separate mics, speakers, DSPs, and more. And in those cases, installation usually requires outside technicians and is often highly invasive and expensive. Plus, it could take your room offline for days. Now, the industry was definitely primed for the same type of leap in technology that transformed and simplified other sectors. Nareva made that leap when they created revolutionary microphone mist technology. Now, with this patented technology, 1 or 2 integrated microphone and speaker bars fill a room with thousands of virtual microphones. There are no dead zones, and everyone can be heard everywhere in the room. Meeting and class participants can simply talk and move naturally in the space and still be heard by remote participants. Thanks to continuous auto calibration, your rooms are instantly and always ready with optimized audio. No outside technicians required. Nareva also simplified installation. It's a 30-minute do-it-yourself job. That means big savings on time and cost compared to traditional systems. They simplified management too. Nareva Console gives IT the power to monitor, manage, and adjust their systems from anywhere. No need for IT to go from room to room. So ask yourself if you want to go with the costly and complicated traditional system or make the leap to simple and economical Nareva. Learn more at nareva.com. That's NUREVA.com. And we thank Nareva for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Lou. We appreciate it, and we'll hear more from you in just a bit. Now, as you know, our bites are a bit longer takes where we look at an article and we talk about it, and I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, and that is base the article that we're talking about on one that, well, I wrote. It's about QR codes. Now, remember QR codes. If you have been out to eat or been to a auto mechanic or just been out in the world in the last couple of years, you've seen these little square things look vaguely like black and white portraits as done in Minecraft. Well, these were originally visual codes, kind of like barcodes, developed to track automotive parts in the automobile manufacturing process. A company called Denso Wave developed them, and there have been some 40 generations now so that they can carry up to 16,000 plus bits of information. That's an awful lot of data to be in a little piece of paper that you're supposed to photograph. Now, you can use these for all kinds of quite legitimate purposes, and one of those in the pandemic has been to give people hands-free menus. In other words, not something that other people have had their grimy, disease-filled hands all over. You just go up, scan something with your mobile phone, and the menu pops up. You can do the same thing to pay or to comment or leave a review or whatever. Here's the problem. How many times have you seen people come into a restaurant, sit down, and before they even get settled, they've whipped out their smartphone and they're taking an image of a QR code so that they can get started on their ordering process? It's like they see the black and white squares, they whip out their mobile device, they scan it, and they're off and running. And that bit of mindlessness is where the problem appears. Because anytime you have a business process or just a living process that people stop thinking about, you've got a vulnerability that threat actors can exploit and use to put malware on systems, to take people to unwanted, malicious websites, well, to do all kinds of things. So I looked at this and said, you know what? It's not that the QR codes are bad. It's that we need to be thoughtful about how we use them. If you're going to go to a restaurant, well, ask a server to bring you a piece of paper that has the code on it, or at least to point out the QR code that's on the table. That way, if there's something unusual there, they'll go, we're not going to see that. Also, I had someone on, one of my colleagues ask me about these things and go, I suppose I shouldn't scan the ones that are plastered on the side of gas pumps. Well, no, you shouldn't. Let's just take it as a bit of, anytime you see information that says do something and it's stuck at a weird angle on the side of a self-serve gas pump, don't do it. That's just basic security, personal, corporate, all sorts of other kind of security. So think about it. And if you are part of the security team for an organization, make sure that these are mentioned in your cybersecurity awareness training. Remember, thoughtless behavior is where the real vulnerability lies. It's just this becomes a really good vehicle for that thoughtless behavior. Now, Brian, I'm going to kick it over to you because I'm curious, do you ever scan these little QR codes when you're out and about in the world?
Actually, hold on a second. This is my new business card. It's called a DOT. And the idea behind it is that you can either scan it with your phone, or you could grab it with your NFC reader off your new iPhone or Android, so that I don't have to quite pass out quite as many business cards. Well, here's the issue, though. Curt and I are both in agreement. When you start doing things just to do it, that's a bad way of doing things. You're looking for problems. And the idea behind it is I actually did a quick and dirty exercise at Interop, maybe a dozen years ago. And that's around the time when trade shows like Interop changed from mag stripe based badges over to NFC badges. So you just tap and go. It was very popular. It was very fast, much more efficient. But here's the issue. I started doing some research into what NFCs and actually what QR codes can both do. And they're shortcuts for things other than just web addresses. It has approximately 4,000 characters, 16,000 such bits of information. But you can set up your wireless. My demo was actually kind of fun. I was actually using a old Nexus 7 tablet, and I reprogrammed the blank cards, or you could reprogram even a unblank card. And I actually had it send an SMS message to myself saying this was sent from someone's phone. It could just as easily be sending a URL to go and grab a web address from a hacker site. And that's the same for NFC. Here's the really interesting thing. If you have a tap and go credit card, which uses NFC, you really ought to keep it in a wallet or a little envelope that blocks remote RF access. One of the demonstrations that was done at DEF CON was a bunch of guys hanging around with a set of high gain antennas, and they're actually reading credit card information out of people's pockets as they walked by. QR codes and NFCs, I kind of lump into the same category because they can both be used for both good and bad. So the dot cards that I'm going to start using, they are non-reprogrammable. So the good news is they only go to the dot card site and do a database lookup on a record that I maintained, so that You could just scan it and get information about the Aloha Underwater Cabled Observatory, or you could scan it and get information about TWiT TV. The idea is I want to be more efficient. I want to be better for the Earth by not generating business cards that people and throwing away anyway. So I think it's cool. There are QR codes in use all over the place. My students like playing geocache. And a lot of times it's a QR code that have clues on where to go and find the next GPS cache. So you can actually program in very fine-grained GPS coordinates so you can make it to the next waypoint. I know a lot of people that use them. There's actually these really, really nice pieces of wood that you can stick on your table, and it's either a QR code or it's an NFC to set up Wi-Fi on your guest's phone or tablets so they can use your guest Wi-Fi. Obviously, this is another suggestion. Have a guest Wi-Fi. Don't put them on your production Wi-Fi. So QR codes and NFCs are both really interesting, great technologies. You can embed lots of information on them, long, complicated parts codes, or web addresses with lots of JSON API information in it also. Just keep in mind what else it can do. So, Curt, you and I both went to Enterprise Connect, and we noticed a lot of QR codes all over the place. What do you think? You think this is going to be something that's going to take a lot of user education?
I really do, because I don't see QR codes going away. They're just too darned useful. I mean, the fact is, you can convey quite a bit of information through a QR code. Now, like Brian said, on the downside, you can include a lot of JSON information in a URL, which means that you can have a URL that carries with it a login to a particular website. You can have malformed URLs. There are all kinds of goofy and malicious things you can do, but you can also carry the information to do things like bring people to a payment portal for a restaurant or other retail site. It's funny because after writing this article, I got the order sheet for business cards. I'm going to be out traveling to real world conferences this year. And the business card for my part of the organization, sure enough, has a QR code on the front. Now, if I had a better sense of humor, I would make sure that my QR code led to my article on the dangers of QR codes. But realistically, it's going to take people to my page at Omdia. So they're useful. They are darned near ubiquitous. We just need to treat it like something that could be dangerous. Now, I got an interesting comment from a senior vice president at another analyst firm when I put up a tweet about this article. He made the point that what we should be doing is building in endpoint protection. And let's be honest, QR codes are almost always entered through a smartphone when it comes to retail QR codes. Industrial use is something else, but that's not really what we're talking about. So what we need are smartphone protection packages that don't allow an entered URL to take you to someplace malicious or to begin a download. Barring that, then we absolutely need to train people to think about the QR codes, not stop using them, not treat them all as evil and start making big inky X's through them when they see them out in public. Just be careful and a little bit smart. It's funny, a bit of awareness, a bit of intelligence goes a long way towards shutting down an awful lot of the malicious activity that's out there. Well, that's it for our bite. we could talk more, but I really want to get to our guest today because, well, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest trends of the last 20 years and possibly the biggest trend of the next 20 in enterprise IT. Before we get there, though, we have another sponsor and another opportunity to hear from Lou Maresca.
Well, thanks, guys. I will get you back to your IT and enterprise news in just a moment, but we do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's Bitwarden. Now, we talk a lot about cyber threats on this show. A lot of them are exploits because of passwords. It comes up a lot in the news, in fact. Now, one way to increase your security posture is to use a password manager. That's right. Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, at work, or on the go, and is trusted by millions. With Bitwarden, you can securely store credentials across personal and business worlds. Every Bitwarden account begins with the creation of a personal vault. Now, Bitwarden recently added a new command to the command line interface, serve, which will start a local express web server and enable RESTful API calls for interaction with the encrypted vault. Now, it's easier than ever to integrate Bitwarden into existing systems and tools. We can't wait to see what automation and processes the developer community creates. It's easier than ever to switch over to Bitwarden with improved support for importing from Dashlane, 1Password, and Mackay. Easily import from browsers or other password managers. Last month, Bitwarden started the phased rollout of account switching. Today, it has come to mobile applications. Log into a total of 5 Bitwarden accounts to easily switch between without having to log out and log in again. This is perfect for those that use Bitwarden at home and at work. Bitwarden is a must-need for your business. It's fully customizable and it adapts to your business needs. Use Bitwarden Send, a fully encrypted method to transmit sensitive information, whether text or files. Generate unique and secure passwords for every site with enterprise-grade security that's GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, and SOC 2 compliant. Their end-to-end encrypted vault helps mitigate phishing attacks. Now, their Teams organization option is $3 a month per user. Share private data securely with coworkers, department, or entire organizations. Enterprises can use Bitwarden's Enterprise Organization Plan for just $5 a month per user. Individuals can use their basic free account forever for an unlimited number of passwords or upgrade anytime to their premium account for less than $1 a month. Their family organization option gives up to 6 users premium features for only $3.33 a month. At TWiT, we are fans of password managers. Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform manager that can be used at home, on the go, or at work, and is trusted by millions of individuals, teams, and organizations worldwide. Get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. That's bitwarden.com/twit. And we thank Bitwarden for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Lou. Can't wait to hear from you again. But before we do, we've got to move on to our guest, someone that I'm very excited to talk to today, Tristan Morel, who is North American Cloud First Growth Lead with Accenture. We're going to talk to him about what that job means and what's what in the cloud. Tristan, welcome to This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Brian. Super excited to be here. I've been a big fan for a long time, so really excited to be talking with you guys.
Well, you've got one of those great titles, and the people who listen to and watch TWiT love to hear how you came to be in that position. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey through careers as they've led to Accenture?
I love it. I love it. And in other of your podcasts, you've used the word the original story, and I love that word. I was having a discussion with some tech friends of mine the other day, and we're discussing, are we part of the boomer generation, the millennials? And we decided that we in technology are part of the OG generation, because I started my career at 12 years old, programming, learning basic on my Apple IIc and computer programming. And that's led to a phenomenal journey for me because it enabled me to discover both how to connect with people and how technology connects with people. And it enabled me to leverage my creativity through programming, through the application of technology. I took this, I joined the military. I was in our Air Force Office Special Investigation. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned Mandiant. Kevin Mandia was also part of the Air Force Office Special Investigation. And there also, I learned the application of technology. The application of technology to connect the warfighters, to connect our airmen back to their homes and talk to their loved ones. So I learned about all the goodness of technology in a sense, as well as some of the challenges that we're experiencing when foreign nations were leveraging technology to attack our country, and how do we respond and how do we deal with that. And then after I left the military, I've been for the past 15 years or so at Accenture, as you mentioned. And I have most of these 15 years worked along the evolution of cloud and infrastructure within our clients. We serve our large multinational clients. And what's been really amazing for me in my journey is how we've helped clients embrace the power of technology, the power of cloud, the power of infrastructure as a fundamentally new operating model. So the best part of my job is still what got me started when I was 12 years old. It's taking technology, working with people and connecting people, connecting businesses, driving my creativity and applying that technology to solve new business challenges. And today I'm not teaching any of you gentlemen anything new. We're in such a unique point in time in cloud and technology that the potential and the activities are truly fascinating. And I love my job and the application that we're having with businesses and clients. So that's my OG story.
I love that story. Love the reference to creativity. That's something that a lot of people tend to forget. That's where many of us got into the field. Well, one of the things that you mentioned in your story was the idea of application, applying the technology to a specific purpose. And early on, that's how cloud computing was seen, that it was perfect for some things, but not for others. Do you think that's still where we are, where cloud is seen as fit for certain applications? Or is cloud now just the preferred method of computing without real regard to specific application?
Oh, what a great question. In fact, I would even take it a little bit further. We've done a lot of research, our cloud continuum research, and we've discovered that cloud is not just a single static destination. It is definitely not just a one cloud compute for that you can host any application into it. And it has different types of innovation. It has different components that need to be applied to different capabilities, different applications, solving different business problems. But even beyond this, it is fundamentally a changing of an operating model. Let me give you an example. You outlined in your QR code example a very relevant behavioral change that now that we have QR codes, people sit down at a table and the first thing they do is scan it. And there's been a behavior change because of this new technology. And the cloud continuum is a complete change of an operating model for businesses. What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. We're working with a fast food store to enable a number of things. Now, there's not one technology that solves it all. We're deploying edge computing at their store, and their store are in real time processing how many burgers they're selling, how many fries they're selling, what demand of clients, and what is the peak time so that they can have the right employees at the right time. So you have a cloud technology that is deployed at the site for real-time decision making. That is very different than from that same client that is now exporting this data, putting it into the cloud public provider, and performing analytics at a macro level to identify large consumer trends. How do they deal with supply chain issues across their store and maximize that? And this company needs to deploy different types of technologies to drive different insights, different capabilities at different points of time, but it still needs to harmonize and orchestrate it across all of that. And it leverages this to change behaviors. And so the cloud is not simply a computing platform. It is much broader than that. It is multiple types of innovation that you get to apply to different parts of a business problems that you solve, while changing an entire operating model, how not only businesses operates, but how consumers interact with these businesses. And that's what's fascinating to me about the change in cloud.
All right. What you talk about sounds incredibly powerful, incredibly pervasive in terms of the business processes that it can work with. But it also sounds incredibly complex. And we know that complexity is one of those things that companies are dealing with from a reliability standpoint, from a resilience standpoint, from a security standpoint. When, once upon a time, you had your company's server that your applications ran on. Now it's this vast constellation of cloud services, cloud providers, different bits and pieces of an infrastructure that somehow are glued together somewhere else. So how big a problem is the complexity of all of this that can prevent someone from really having a good idea of how their compute infrastructure works?
Yeah, that's great question. So we've seen, and in speaking to the clients, we've seen three main themes consistent with all of our conversations over, I would say, the past 12 to 18 months. The first is the one that you outlined, complexity, and I'll dive into that. The second is compressed transformation, the idea that transformation of technology that used to take 5 years, 10 years has happened, we've seen it during COVID, in incredibly compressed ways. And that's driving a lot of behavior changes. And then the third is change, the customer's relationship with technology at clients, at customers, at businesses. So let me address your first question and the first point that you outlined around complexity. Just because you're in the cloud does not mean you no longer have an infrastructure. You still need an infrastructure. And we viewed the cloud as a cloud continuum that includes all the external and internal IT capabilities that clients have. And every day, we know that our clients tell us they need to unlock the power of data, the power of AI, but we've seen that they are struggling to do so with distributed infrastructure environment. And furthermore, clients have legacy infrastructure that tend to be limiters to leveraging innovation. And this is where, in our infrastructure point of view, we've outlined the idea and the methodology. You can't look at infrastructure as a static environment or as an environment that is separate from the rest of cloud. It has to be able to operate and be orchestrated across the cloud continuum. So clients have to, one, see that visibility. And clearly, you had at the beginning of your podcast a lot of discussions around security issues. We're seeing a lot of those today. And that starts with having the visibility of the environment, particularly all of its infrastructure. Those security concerns can be challenging as you're evolving that, as you're evolving the infrastructure, as you're evolving that into the cloud capabilities, into data capabilities, into AI capabilities. This is why the methodology of first the visibility, then stabilize that infrastructure, evolve it. We used to think of infrastructure as a fixed point in time. You mentioned servers, right? Clients used to buy all sorts of servers. They would use these 5-year procurement cycles. They'd put all these servers in the data center, and then 5 years later, they would do it again. Infrastructure now is much more dynamic. It evolves. And this is a mindset shift for most of our clients, that they need to look at that infrastructure as an evolving organism within their enterprise. And then finally, how do you transform the infrastructure? How do you build upon new capabilities of infrastructure? I mentioned Edge earlier. Edge is an incredibly powerful infrastructure capability that needs to be visible, that needs to be managed, and that needs to be empowered to deliver that innovation to clients. So infrastructure is complex, but when you think about it no longer as a static environment, but as a dynamic one that evolves, it becomes something that it becomes an enabler. It is no longer viewed as a limiter of organization. It's no longer viewed as an anchor to organization, but truly as a differentiator. So that first one, the complexity, is very important. And I would add that the evolution of infrastructure into the cloud continuum also has a big impact on sustainability. We've seen a lot of clients change and evolve their infrastructure and drive sustainability improvements into their IT. And some clients like CMHC are very proud of that and are reporting this externally into their annual report.
I want to ask a follow-up question on the question of visibility, because when you're talking about visibility into a dynamic environment, it sounds like you're trying to get a good detailed look inside a moving car as it goes by at 60 miles an hour. Do we really have either the processes or the technology to allow people to maintain good visibility into this rapidly evolving infrastructure?
Yeah, love that question. We actually learned a lot from the public cloud capabilities. When the public cloud capabilities started ramping up, when AWS, Microsoft, Google launched their capabilities, we discovered that a virtual machine that was created could be uncreated minutes later. We discovered that a PaaS services, a remote database, an RDS, etc., are very ephemeral in nature and could live only for a few minutes when the application needed it or when the application needed to scale. So there are new technologies and processes that needed to be built that are much more dynamic in terms of how much of that infrastructure or that compute is being used and where do they live. And so the technologies around tagging became much more prevalent, and we saw this in the early days of public cloud computing. We've taken these technologies of tagging to apply that concept much more broadly to the rest of the infrastructure. Because we see that the virtualized infrastructure, whether it's network or servers or Citrix environment, etc., is much more prevalent, and we had to do a mind shift. So the technology does exist, the processes do exist, but I would highlight that the broader change to adapt to these differences in technology and processes is probably the long pole in the tent, because it's the human behavior of thinking completely differently from a passive and static environment. I know what I have at a point in time, to an evolving environment, a car that is moving, which requires a different mind shift, and that is probably what is taking the longest time for large companies to adapt to that mind shift. But the technology and the processes absolutely exist, and data tagging has enabled us to measure, monitor, and manage dynamic environments.
I love that we can measure and monitor the things that are changing. Well, we've got a lot more of this conversation to happen, but before we get there, we need to go back and hear from Lou Maresca one more time as he tells us about another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Lou, take it away.
Well, thank you, guys. I'll get you back to your guests in just a moment. But before we do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's Intel, orchestrated by the experts at CDW. They understand that to keep up with changing business needs, organizations of all sizes need to stay secure, connected, and protected. And that takes powerful processors that are built for today and tomorrow. Like Intel's built for business 11th gen Intel Core vPro processors. Now, the 11th gen Intel Core vPro processors provide you with the performance, security, and remote manageability needed to continually move forward and stay productive, even while on the go. CDW works with Intel to provide the right technology to fuel productivity and innovation. CDW can assess your distributed workforce and their needs and implement the Intel vPro platform and configure devices powered by 11th gen Intel Core vPro processors, accelerating digital business transformation. Performance, a new processor core architecture delivers increased overall application performance, meaning less time waiting and more productivity from anywhere. Compatible with Wi-Fi 6 to prevent delays, built-in AI that accelerates apps and optimizes speeds. Security, Intel Hardware Shield builds in protection, detecting and preventing malware and network threats without sacrificing performance. Remote manageability, cloud-based or hardware-based management for IT leaders, consistent features across notebooks, desktops, and workstations within a business. For increased performance and security, trust Intel and IT orchestration by CDW. People who get it. Learn more at cdw.com/Intel Client. That's cdw.com/Intel Client. And we thank Intel, orchestrated by the experts at CDW. Now back to you guys.
Thanks, Lou. We're here with Tristan Morel, North American Cloud First Growth Lead with Accenture. I've been talking with him and I've been sort of hogging the questions, so it's time for me to bring my co-host in. Brian, I know you've got a bunch of questions you'd just love to ask.
Well, I'm going to ask a little bit. The books that Curt and I both wrote, we co-authored for CRC Press on cloud computing and then cloud security. One of the things that came up that was really interesting is the number of different opinions on the concept of service level agreements. And that was actually one of the things that people that I've talked to are afraid. The people that are still afraid of clouds are usually got some sort of application that needs a service level agreement. Now, having your background, are you actually seeing this? Are service level agreements that big a deal, or did I just manage to find some people that are Chicken Little?
I love that question. I love that question because you can look at service level agreements in a number of ways. You can look at service level agreements as, is my workload up or not? And what's fascinating in the world of cloud is one shouldn't really care about that. Because if you've designed an application in the cloud the right way, then if your workload or your VM or whatnot is not working, you switch it to another. And so the availability of a given VM is not so important as how are you architecting the application the right way and for resiliency. Now, if you take that thought process a little bit further, Brian, we then ask ourselves the question of what is really what we're trying to achieve with a cloud? And what we're trying to achieve with the cloud is the innovation. We're trying to apply innovation in real time and deliver it to customer. Let me expand slightly on this. The promise of cloud is that innovation, is the fact that the Microsofts, the Google, the AWS, the Dells with their edge capability, all of those infrastructure providers are bringing innovation. The question a CIO or a CEO today has is, am I applying this innovation into my environment in real time for the benefit of my customer? That is the real SLA. And how well an IT organization does this and applies that to serve clients is the real proof and what we should really care about cloud. Let me give you an example. When COVID started, we had a number of hospitals that were completely overwhelmed with calls from patients saying, should I come in? Should I come into this hospital? These are my symptoms. And you can imagine the nurses were busy treating patients and didn't have time to answer the phone. Hospitals then quickly deployed, particularly hospitals that were already in a bit of a cloud continuum environment, leveraging the cloud. They were able to quickly deploy AI chatbots that could do pre-triage for people that would have those questions and accelerate that triage, keep nurses doing what they were doing, keep doctors doing what they were doing, keep patients away from hospital if they didn't need to go there. And so the application of technology and the application of those innovation, these AI and machine learning chatbots, is the real SLA. How quickly is your organization able to apply that innovation? And I think that, to me, should be the real SLA of cloud.
Well, let's take that a little further. Let's ask a question about globalization. The world's gone cloud, but does the world do it the same way? America seems to love hybrid, but what about France? What about Germany? What about the Slavic world? You're in a global corporation. What kind of view have you been able to see on cloud across the world?
Phenomenal, timely. I don't know if you must have been spying on some of the external articles we've been writing and releasing. I believe we released one this week about the importance of sovereign cloud, and this is a topic that has been existing and very relevant for our European clients. They've because of their data laws, they've been focused heavily on sovereign cloud. And what's very interesting, Brian, is this is an area that is expanding across the globe because clients, multinational clients, which are typically those that we serve, have presence in Europe, have presence in Asia Pacific, and all of them have either requirements to process their data within country, or many industries, financial services industries, resources industries, have requirement to protect certain types of data. So sovereign cloud is very important. Now, we see all clients leverage the cloud continuum and leverage the innovation of as many cloud that are relevant to their industry and their sector, but they are architecting their enterprise differently, leveraging sovereign cloud concepts that are within their sovereign country, sovereign area. And this is something that, as you know, all these innovations are ever more important as we're seeing the metaverse become reality at some of our clients. How do they manage both the innovation, the decentralization required to bring the power of the metaverse, as well as the sovereign cloud to meet and sustain all their regulations required? So it's a very complex ecosystem, but those clients that are able to navigate that cloud continuum in sovereign ways are those that we see leapfrog their peers in terms of competitiveness.
Well, we have been talking about cloud and doing a great job. This is one of those things, obviously, Brian and I could talk about for hours, since we've been interested enough to write a couple of books on the subject. And you could talk about it for hours because it's where
Absolutely.
You've ended up in your career. But the people who run the network wouldn't like us to talk about it for hours because there are other shows to do. So we've spent nearly an hour talking about this. Tristan, I'd love to know if someone has questions of you, would love to take advantage of some of your expertise. How do they do that? Is there a place to follow you on social media? Is there a website they can go to? What should folks do?
Absolutely. Obviously, we have a lot of our points of views on Accenture.com, and I encourage everybody to go see there, look at our point of views, look at our careers. I know a lot of people are interested in careers, growing their careers. And what's fascinating is cloud is not always just a technology career. It requires change, design, etc. I'm very active on social media. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, perhaps TikTok, if I was to admit it, at T Lorset, TLHORSET. Again, very active, love questions. And we've had a number of people reach out over the years with interest. Cloud is very powerful. I think it offers wonderful careers. And I think will be even more relevant as we're driving closer and closer to the metaverse, leveraging cloud capabilities.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us today. We've had as our guest Tristan Morel Lorset, North American Cloud First Growth Lead with Accenture. And I've been joined by my co-host, Mr. Brian Chee. Brian, what do you have going on in the coming week? What do people need to know about your activity?
Well, I still have a bunch of fiber optic work to get done with my partner in Honolulu. He's doing all kinds of fun stuff. I'm still doing a bunch of stuff with Raspberry Pi platform and customized embedded machines that we're going to be renting in the same market. But you know what? I actually post about this. And I do a lot of it on Twitter and I do a lot of it on Facebook. But, Twitter's easier. And my handle is ADVNETLAB, Advanced Net Lab. That's kind of a leftover from when I was running a testing lab in Honolulu. I throw all kinds of stuff there, not the least of which I was complaining about all the problems I'm having with my MacBook when I went up to the Monterey version of the operating system. Darn. Yeah, and there's a picture. I actually had to change the batteries. Those are all batteries. Those all turned into pillows. It was just about ready to have a disaster. So I popped it open and had the little doodad from iFixit and was able to go and peel those batteries out and put some fresh batteries in. So that was fun. I'm also more than happy to hear from you if you want to toss me an email. I'm Cheebert, spelled Cheebert at twit.tv, or if you'd like, you can send it to TWiT at twit.tv, and that'll hit all the hosts. We'd love to hear from you. And that does include the folks in countries where maybe English isn't your first language. That would be arrogant of us to think it would be. Just keep in mind that if you send it to me in a language that I don't speak, make sure you have a little patience. I'm going to be using a machine translator, but I will make every effort to go and answer your questions. You can also obviously hit the show notes. All the URLs that we mentioned in the show are put there so you can get access to that reference material. And, we'd like to hear from you. But anyway, take care and stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. As for me, you can always follow me over on Twitter at KG4GWA. Keep up with me on LinkedIn, Curtis Franklin. So if you have things going on in the world of the human side of cybersecurity, let me know. If you have questions about the same, let me know. And if you're going to be at the RSA conference coming up in mid-June, look for me there. I'm going to be there live and in person, fingers crossed, for the first time in a while. So look forward to actually seeing fellow human beings in the flesh. Well, thank you for being with us. We say it often that we could not and would not do this without you, our viewers and listeners. TWiT tapes every Friday at 4:30 Eastern Time, 1:30 Pacific. We hope you can join us live or on your favorite podcast catcher or at twit.tv. When you're not watching us, we hope that you are taking advantage of the latest that we bring you in the world of enterprise technology. And remember, if you want to keep up with everything that's going on in enterprise class technology, well, just keep TWiT.
Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club TWiT. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club TWiT Discord, a great clubhouse for TWiT listeners. And finally, the TWiT Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, The Giz Fizz, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support.